Universiteti I Durrësit për kumtesën e rëndësishme e cila si kundër u pa mbështetet në hulumtimet empirike dhe sjell të dhëna me interes që natyrisht zgjojnë vëmendjen dhe kuriositeten edhe për hulumtimet e mëtejme. Përgëzojmë për këtë hulumtim. Tani në radhë është kolegja Suela Ndoja që do ta paraqes kumtesën.
First, hello to everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I will present a manuscript developing a futurism conscience and reform of higher education in Albania. My manuscript is based on creativity and reflection of nowadays situation, academic situation. It contains a context, objective, descriptive scenario building, and suggestion. Well, let us ask, how does a child form its picture of the future, the personal future, and later the larger public future, which the personal future is only a part? Let's say that it is a dramatic question. Education in the future tense, and not singular, but in plural, which demand not merely in how, where, and when, but why, because why is more deeper. And more specifically, what kind of education we should start with. To understand better this, I have noted here an example. A girl of 7 years jumped down the stair to the street and asked, "You are a teacher?" said, and the teacher asked, "How do you know?" being surprised by the sudden identification. The girl, pointing to her friend that came down to jump behind her, said, "I know, that's all." She has not said, "No one told me that. I know, and that's it." Well, while trying to resort a stereotype, we can say that the girl has discovered a model. She had observed certain common traits and had arrived at generalizing. So, she explained her underwriting world. What is she seeing with her eyes but something concrete? We have here in both a natural, spontaneous concept. She cannot say or explain why, but uses what, however, give a form to the content of the experience. We see that the children receive stimulates from the world, establish the relationship between elements, and anticipate future results by applying the values of which were sized. But at a given point, happens something, and this happens. When does this happen? Let us ask. When does a child ask, "What does this mean to me?" and "Why I am doing this for?" When it comes to maturity, continues to ask, "What differences will cause this experience in the individual that I am, in the individual who I will be tomorrow?" Then, let us ask again, are we dealing with a developed stage of conscience in their future? Objective of this manuscript is, then, to present the importance of futurism conscience into higher education in Albania as a common way of educational and social change beyond curriculum reform. I have introduced here an operational context, and it is the heart of this manuscript, descriptive scenario building. Well, as an introduction, first I have begun with a 3-stage and then 7 sections of descriptive scenario building based approach to strategic planning in higher education in Albania. What is scenario building? According to some authors, it refers as a term to consultants who are demanding always to planify something for the future of higher education. It is a deductive method useful for constructing and describing scenarios in a certain situation perceivable from an outside in perspective. But scenarios used in context are not meant as a forecast, but rather introduce a picture which describes a possible future building in higher education in Albania. Here I have constructed a triangle, and I would say a challenging triangle scenario. A is a main rib which stands at the apex of a triangle, and it is the impact. So A is the first stage of futurism conscience that is supposed to give an impact on the two other ribs. And B is the rib on the left, which allows linear movement, but it is uncertainty, because the second stage B is educational reform movement. We don't know if we have a movement or not. Maybe we are planning it. Maybe we are going on with this kind of movement that is still nowadays. And C is line parallel to side B, which is derived directly from rib B, and we stay connected all the time with the apex A. So it is an intercultural curriculum. Because if we have a reform, we are going to change the curriculum too. Futurism conscience contains two meanings, futurism and conscience too. Futurism was used for the first time by a German professor, Fleschheim, who explained to the others for a new science of probability. And conscience is the state of being aware of something inside us and to perceive something outside us. And so, futurism conscious as a powerful psychological role in education? Yes, I would say that it would help us to accept change and be flexible. Higher education in Albania is changing regarding of the human situation, and this means that we have to accept these changes in a positive thinking, and it helps us to make physical preparations, do mental preparations, and do physical preparation, because we have to save some money for the future. Education reform movement. I would say that education reform has received increasing attention to all the authors, all the leaders of education, all the administrative staff, and Ministry of Education itself. Higher education in Albania has adopted a standards-based system that defines programs and curriculum in academic disciplines. Process of Bologna is, I can say, we are in the first stage. It is still experimental for us, but for the most students, continues to be a challenge to our goals and desires too. The Ministry of Education, it means that our state is challenging resourcing toward the development, positive development, or improvement of quality in our education system. But I refer here to Tushi, who has explained the social dilemma. He says that obviously reform in science is a necessary process, as well as despite their persistence cannot escape from reforming. But every social reform always has its social effect, and also considerable financial one. The political atmosphere today. Higher education has earned a central place in our national political dialogue. There is probably a positive development, but cannot be understood in isolation from parallel political developments. However, centrally, the education process also is translated into a politicizing of the educational debate. Always, for example, we have seen the politicians who say education is in this point, or we have to fight against it or that, and they mention education too. Professor unions and students groups in particular are becoming, in considerable cases, active political entities. Although this is understandable, it introduces the risk of prompting politicians to act out of political expediency rather than considering what is educationally productive. Future movement. Well, nowadays, let us see that our passing free universities. It has begun in Albania, for example, as a separation from public university as a traditional higher education, which is not easy at all. It is accompanied by other thoughts that are found because it means learning a new living, that maybe the professor and the students themselves are not still prepared. Therefore, we are conscious that students, rural and urban areas, poor and rich, with disabilities or not, must be conscious and prepared to take responsibility for this kind of new living. This is in order to find a common language, making a call multidiversity the possibility and the opportunity to imagine probable future, understanding realistic futures, and deciding about preferable futures one. Well, which are the bad news? I refer again to the teacher who has done a great study of the situation in Albania. He states, so referred movements need a carefully step and do not want to be viewed and treated in a biased manner, but in both aspects attached to each reform, assesses the social impact report of change in relation to financial impact, because all have a desire to study, but on the other hand, where do they get the funding to? Program for education policymakers. Nowadays we see that we have parallel strategies. For example, this year is a new director and he decides, he can say, for example, this kind of program is not qualitative. Maybe it is qualitative, but coming with a desire to make something new, we have the risk to make parallel strategies and to make only one ad, or maybe not one ad, but to get away from the right one and to put another one. So there is a need of higher conscience about the implementation of system-wide programs, not adding just another parallel draft into education, but constructing a tool, because something is already done yet. Notably for our education policymaker, during my experience of academy teaching, I have understood that to manage the academic life of students, it was not enough only to explain them the lesson, I would say, but we have to construct a strict methodology, but taking into account prevent factors, push factors, and pull factors. There are three factors that impede the academic life of the students. For example, prevent factors are because they are living like in a struggle, because they are seeking domination, they are trying to get away from prejudice, etc. System-wide policy assessment programs as a continuing process. We have to take into consideration that over time we have to use measures, systematic and regular measures, student learning at different levels of the system and information to monitor standards all over the time. Intercultural curriculum. I have called academic character development, because if we have a rich, I would say, intercultural curriculum, we will give the character to the student of learning. So it would be translated better in intercultural curriculum, including guidance curriculum, individual planning, responsive services, and system support, avoiding contributory intercultural images. Because development of intercultural understanding is an essential element, and for democratic Albania, university must address to the values that underpin professors and students' views and other cultures too. Cultural system approach. I refer here to a leader of education named John Locke. He believed that education is truth and knowledge and arises out of observation and experience rather than from manipulation of accepted or given idea. I refer again to the example with a little girl, and I will try to give the right explanation. It would be the cultural system approach, because it encourages the student to complement the model, to explore it, to share it with the others, to use it, to imagine it in the future tense, and to construct a new one. Counseling service for students. Experience of the students. Well, we know that to be a student, it is not easy at all, because it is a challenge, I would say. And we must secure a place where students must develop new perspectives to grow up as an individual, to find answer, etc. Because they may experience fighting against the system. And if university offers a cultural system approach, can offer a lot of helping them to meet the challenging they are facing every day. Counseling service. As discussed by Baxter, counseling should be supported by assessment data as part of a concerted early warning system, because through counseling we can understand better the experience of the student. But the intensive counseling should be introduced in our educational system to help in total development, not only for the students themselves, but the academic staff too. And these aims can be handled only by specialized administrative staff. Guidance for future scientists. Science in the development world. I refer you to St. Augustine, who says, teaching is nothing else except a science in itself. And so nobody can teach anyone except the interior teaching. An exterior teacher, in this case, is a person who gives signals of the knowledge, and it is what Dr. Musai states. It transmits to members of its values, beliefs, knowledge, and symbolic expressions. And a professor, in this case, must be a person who inspires them to work on experimental science, trial and mistake. They specialize in the student in scientists. We are used to hear nowadays specialization, and for example, I have chosen to study psychology, and I am specialized. The specializing in this case means being specialized through this specialization, because if we study, for example, a branch, it does not mean that we have got this diploma and we are specialized. So the students have a lot of choices, and we aim to go the perfect one. But at the one hand, we have technology. Video programs, internet, etc. And what does it mean? They indirectly anticipate their growing recognition. And the specializing students means not only in a certain field, but educating him or her with an imagine of being a future scientist. Practice for successful transition to employment. The new learning is the difference between observation and demonstration that is called reinforcement. Well, how can we learn to think? For example, how can we ride a car if we have not ridden even a tiny minute? And this is the kind of, we have to see, but we have to make the proof too. And this is the kind of live reinforcement, and which make the successful practice too. Practice. Students in higher education experiences often do not prepare them adequately for the world of work. Well, Ministry of Education and Science currently has said that after the university, higher education, the students need to make a practice. I think it is not enough, because the students must make this kind of practice during the university to be prepared tomorrow for the field of work. Why after the university? It means time, it means consuming, and it means a lot of other things. So the final suggestions are that this manuscript encourages in potentially policymakers, administrative staff, professors, students, futurism conscious for all about sections and under section that I mentioned before, to help them to fit into the social life of home and community. Suggesting thought on this assumption origins has shifted from an idea of a smart grid, because I have called a smart grid, a futurism conscience can give a positive impact on the idea of two linear grid, the later which hence now free to grasp the environment of academic space, creating a plan to know, to heal and expand themselves in a new educational movement, which in parallel with intercultural curriculum believing to have found the pocket of the answer why we should educate. Here it is a contemporary system views. I have put here some inputs. Where is a person, power, facilities, methods, programs, and environment, but all these are connected with the processes of conscience, because a conscience is necessary to produce the outputs. The outputs is the future movement that we will plan in the future, service, the kind of service, implementation of intercultural curriculum. And let us think, would this be external or internal point of view? The pocket of the answer why we should educate. We have knowing how versus knowing why. Knowing why, I would say, is deeper, because knowing how is superficial knowledge. Knowing why is deeper because it captures underlying cause-effect relationship and accommodates exception, adaptations, and unforeseen events. So, here, we have building a Chenery house of quality. We are all the sections: futurism conscience, educational reform movement, programs of educational policymakers, intercultural curriculum, consulate service for students, guidance for future scientists, and practice. The future ain't what it used to be, imparting. Here are the references, and thank you for your attention.